The Interstellar Academy on Station Kepler 442 was humanity's first joint training facility with the Galactic Coalition. 50 human cadets mixed with 200 aliens from across known space, learning everything from xenobiology to diplomatic protocol. It was supposed to foster understanding between species. Instead, it mostly fostered confusion. Cadet Tommy Richards sat in the Academy's common area, reviewing star charts on his datapad. Around him, various alien cadets studied in clusters, their translator implants creating a low hum of multiple languages converting to galactic standard. Tommy had grown used to the curious stares. Humans were still a novelty, the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel and petition for coalition membership. The Vrexian delegation especially watched humans with barely concealed concern. The Vrex were an ancient species, herbivorous quadrupeds whose civilization had flourished for 50,000 years through careful diplomacy and conflict avoidance. They'd survived by being cautious, analytical, and above all else, good at recognizing danger. Humans made them deeply nervous. "It's the eyes," Cadet Velnara had explained once, her four legs shuffling anxiously. "They face forward. Predator eyes. And the way you move, always scanning, always tracking. You make my prey instincts scream." Tommy had apologized profusely and tried to move less threateningly. It hadn't helped much. The common area door hissed open, and Ambassador Crothex entered with his family. The Croth were one of the Coalition's apex species, massive feline-like beings who stood 3 meters tall, covered in midnight black fur striped with silver. They were obligate carnivores, their society built on honor, combat prowess, and a strict hierarchical structure. Unlike most predator species, the Croth had never developed prey instincts to unlearn. They were apex, always had been, and their confidence showed in every movement. Crothex's cub, barely 6 months old and already the size of an earth lion, padded alongside his father. The ambassador was giving his son a tour of the facility, teaching him about the various species that comprised the coalition. The cub's name was Raxthal, and he had all the curiosity of a kitten with none of the fear. His bright amber eyes tracked every movement in the common area. The other cadets gave him a wide berth. Croth cubs were playful but also armed with claws that could disembowel most species accidentally. Raxthal's gaze landed on Tommy and locked. The human was different from the other soft-bodied species in the room. He smelled like leather and something else, something that pinged against instincts the cub didn't fully understand yet. Before Ambassador Crothex could react, Raxthal bounded toward Tommy, his oversized paws hitting the floor with heavy thumps. He stopped a meter away and dropped into a play stance, rear haunches raised, front legs splayed, tail swishing. Then he growled. It wasn't a threatening growl, any Croth would recognize it as an invitation to play. But to the other cadets in the room, it was the sound of a predator preparing to strike. The Vrexian students bolted for the exits. The Thalassian delegates erected their personal shields. Even the Gordanian cadets, who prided themselves on their stoic warrior culture, took several careful steps backward. Tommy looked up from his datapad, saw the cub, and his face split into a delighted grin. "Oh, you want to play?" he said in perfect Croth, which he'd been studying for 3 months. "Okay, let's play." He set down his datapad, dropped to his hands and knees, and growled back. The sound that came from Tommy's throat wasn't a whimper or a squeak. It was a deep, rumbling growl that resonated from his chest, a sound that Earth's apex predators had perfected over millions of years. Humans might not have had fangs or claws, but they'd evolved with bears, big cats, and wolves. They knew how to speak predator. Raxthal's ears perked forward in pure joy. Finally, someone who understood. He pounced forward, and Tommy rolled to the side with surprising agility, coming up in a crouch and mock-charging the cub. Raxthal yipped, the Croth equivalent of a laugh, and scrambled away, his claws scrabbling on the polished floor. Ambassador Crothex stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. His son was playing with a human. The soft species. The ones who supposedly needed protection from the harsh realities of galactic space. Except this human was keeping pace with a Croth cub. Tommy lunged forward, grabbed Raxthal around the middle, and the two tumbled across the common area in a wrestling match that would have hospitalized most species. The cub's claws were sheathed, barely, but each swipe would have been lethal if he'd meant it. Tommy dodged and weaved with the practiced ease of someone who'd grown up roughhousing, his augmented reflexes letting him react faster than the cub expected. Gotcha. Tommy laughed, pinning Raxthal's shoulders to the ground. The cub squirmed and playfully snapped at Tommy's arm, a bite that would have severed limbs from most beings. Tommy's forearm caught the bite, his reinforced bones and dense muscle tissue absorbing the pressure. He didn't even flinch. Okay, your turn. Tommy released the cub, who immediately pounced on him, pinning the human with his superior weight. Tommy went limp in mock defeat, and Raxthal stood over him proudly, tail held high. Then Tommy grabbed the cub's front legs and flipped him. The watching cadets gasped. You didn't flip a Croth. Even in play, such a move was. Raxthal's delighted yipping filled the air as he rolled to his feet, immediately coming back for more. His tail was wagging so hard his entire rear end swayed. Ambassador Crothex felt something shift in his understanding of humans. He'd read the reports, of course. Death World species. Persistence hunters. Omnivorous and therefore capable of both predator and prey mindsets. But reading reports and watching a human wrestle with his son were entirely different experiences. Your human is very brave, came a voice beside him. Instructor Vrel, a Vrexian elder who taught interspecies psychology, had approached cautiously. Or very foolish. Neither, Crothex said slowly, watching his son attempt to tackle Tommy, who caught him mid-air and spun him around before gently setting him down. He's comfortable. Comfortable? Vrel's translator voice lilted with confusion. He knows what Raxthal is. Knows the danger. But humans evolved alongside predators. They were both predator and prey on their world, they had to understand both to survive. Crothex's tail swished thoughtfully. We Croth never had natural enemies. We were always apex, always safe in our dominance. But humans? They lived with things that could kill them. They learned to read intent, to distinguish play from hunting, threat from bluster. On the floor, Tommy had produced a small ball and was rolling it across the ground. Raxthal pounced on it with all the fierce intensity of a hunter taking down prey, then brought it back to Tommy for another throw. He's teaching my son fetch, Crothex said with something that might have been amusement. I've been trying for weeks. More cadets had returned to the common area now that it was clear no one was being eaten. They watched in fascination as human and Croth cub played. Tommy showed Raxthal how to roll the ball with his paws. Raxthal showed Tommy the proper Croth hunting crouch. They traded techniques like children everywhere, finding common ground in the universal language of play. Finally, exhausted, Raxthal flopped onto his side, panting. Tommy sat beside him, scratching behind the cub's ears. The massive predator purred, a sound like rolling thunder. You are good with cubs, Ambassador Crothex said, approaching carefully. Tommy stood and bowed in the Croth fashion. I grew up with dogs, sir. Big ones. And I've got 3 younger siblings, playing rough is kind of my specialty. Dogs? Crothex's translator struggled with the word. Domestic predators we keep as companions on Earth. We domesticated them from wolves, pack hunters. Their family. Tommy grinned. Probably why I recognized Raxthal's play behavior. Same energy as a puppy, just, bigger. And with more murder mittens. Crothex looked at Vrel, whose translator was smoking slightly from processing the phrase, murder mittens. Instructor, the ambassador said formally, I believe we need to revise our assessment of human psychology. They are not prey playing at civilization. They are not predators pretending to be peaceful. They are something the galaxy has never seen, a species that bridges both worlds. They understand us because they had to understand everything to survive their world. Tommy had knelt back down and was engaged in what appeared to be a very serious conversation with Raxthal about proper pouncing technique. The cub was demonstrating, and Tommy was providing commentary and encouragement. The other species fear them because they don't fit our categories, Crothex continued. But perhaps that's exactly what the coalition needs, someone who can speak both the language of fangs and the language of trust. Vrel's ears lowered in thought. You may be right, Ambassador. Though I suspect it will take time for the rest of us to overcome our instincts. Time, Crothex agreed, watching his son tackle Tommy one more time, both of them laughing in their own ways, and perhaps more play dates.